This is my review of my scapholunate ligament reconstruction surgery. About 2 years ago, I was working out doing burpees and felt something give in my wrist. It didn't hurt to the point where I had to stop at the time, but as I continued to work out, things got worse, and doing things like bowling and whatnot, it got to the point where I couldn't use my wrist hardly at all. It's my right wrist, I'm right-handed, so it was really a pain in the butt. Um, at the time of the injury, I was 38 years old and working out probably 5 or 6 days a week. I tried to run at least 10 miles a week, and I did like a fit body boot camp type thing, also several times a week. It really limited what I was able to do. I wasn't able to do anything where I could bend my wrist back, so push-ups all had to be done on my knuckles on my right hand. I couldn't open a door that was like a push door with my right hand. A lot of things I couldn't do. So went to the doctor, and the first doctor I went to said there really wasn't much he could do for me. He gave me some cortisone shots. That was about all that he did. So I went in for a second opinion, and second doctor sent me for an MRI and discovered that I had torn the scapholunate ligament in my wrist. So the option was live with it. I'd potentially develop arthritis early on, and it'd just be uncomfortable for the rest of my life because it doesn't heal itself, or have the surgery. I waited about 2 years, lived with it for 2 years, decided that I didn't want to live like this anymore, and that I wanted to get it fixed. So doctor explained that the surgery, he was going to remove the injured ligament, and apparently I have spare parts inside my arm, because on the underside of my arm, under here somewhere, I don't know where, he would remove a ligament from there and transplant it into where he removed the injured ligament from. So, as I prepared for this surgery, I was nervous. Wasn't sure what to expect. Watched some videos on YouTube, and I just wanted to give you guys an overview in case any of you are, potentially going through the same thing, or if you're considering going through the same thing, as to what you can expect, at least for the first 48 hours, as I'm about 48, 50 hours out from surgery right now. Day of surgery, I got there at 7 a.m. They brought me back. I was nervous because I had heard that they were going to do a nerve block, and the thought of somebody putting a needle into a nerve sounded pretty intense to me, like it was going to hurt a lot. And I expressed that to the nurse, and she said, "Don't worry about it. The IV is actually worse than the nerve block." So IVs have never bothered me. I've never really had a major surgery, but I have had IVs before. Put the IV in, that was no problem. For the nerve block, they use an ultrasound machine, so they had me turn my head to the side. The shot goes into your shoulder. It was a pretty small gauge needle, you barely feel the poke. And then when they're administering the medicine, you can feel that going in, but it isn't terribly painful. It's just is what it is. Once that got done, they knocked me out, and I woke up. I assumed it took right around an hour and a half for the surgery. I woke up. My arm was completely dead. There was no pain whatsoever. It was just numb. And when I say numb and dead, like there was nothing. Couldn't wiggle my fingers at all. Couldn't feel anything from about the middle of my bicep down. Couldn't move my arm. There was nothing. So they sent me home after the surgery, and for that whole day, I was in a sling, which if I could, I guess, give a little bit of advice, I'd say get your own sling. Order one off of Amazon. Order something nice. The one that they gave me was just kind of cheap and didn't provide a whole lot of support, especially when your arm, you don't realize how heavy your arm is until it's completely dead and you've got to move it around. It's a very strange feeling. So, a nice sling with support would be something that I would, something that goes up against your body, because I was trying to shove pillows under there. They were coming out. You don't really have much control of it. You can't feel what it's doing. You have to just kind of watch it. So if I had support that was attached to the sling, that probably would have been better. They left me in this soft cast, which is kind of nice because there's a lot of swelling. And if you need to relieve a little bit of the pressure, you can always, unwrap it and relieve some of the pressure that way. Like my thumb, I couldn't feel it, but I could see that it wasn't the right color, so I was able to at least unwrap it a little bit and wrap it back up properly. As far as pain goes, it took about 24 hours for me to be able to wiggle my finger, even just a little bit like that. Um, there was nothing before then. Trying to sleep with the nerve block was rough because I had no idea what my arm was going to do. Had to really make sure I was propped up, because if I wasn't propped up, there was good potential that my arm would just flop off the side of the bed and be hanging there all night, and that wouldn't be good. So um, sleep was rough the first night, and I started my pain meds about 10 or 12 hours after surgery. And I wasn't feeling any pain, but I started it then to get ahead of any pain that I may be feeling. And I'd suggest that you do the same. Since then, as the nerve block has worn off and I can feel the pins and the incision, my pain probably sits at normal circumstances 3 or 4, depending on how long it's been since I've taken my last pain pill. They gave me Norco, which is sufficient. I didn't need anything more than that. It was totally fine. And so, yeah, I haven't taken a Norco in over 5 hours now. I feel like I'm pretty well able to start weaning off. And again, it's been about 50 hours since my surgery. So I have a follow-up appointment with the doctor in about 8 days, where they're going to take off this bandage, they're going to take out the sutures, and then they're going to put me in a hard cast. So I'll probably check back with you all then. But I wanted to give you an update as to what you can expect for the first 24 hours, and a few, I guess, tips. If I could do things different, I'd get a different sling. I'd prepare my bed beforehand, because it was kind of rough that first night trying to do it in the middle of the night. But yeah, see you soon.